Good morning, Pastor Ed from Hope Lutheran Church with daily devotions for Thursday, May the 6th, 2021. Our reading this morning comes from the book of Deuteronomy. It's kind of a departure, which we usually see at least once or twice during the week. Departure from kind of the theme and the lectionary lessons from the previous Sunday. It's in line a little bit with something that we did a few months ago. I think probably from the beginning of the book of Joshua. Because in this passage, Moses is kind of turning over the reins to his successor, Joshua. But before we get into that, let's begin with the service of responsive prayer, as we always do, namely the Lord's Prayer, the Apostles' Creed, and Martin Luther's morning prayer. Let us begin. Holy God, holy and mighty, holy and immortal, have mercy on us. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Save us from the time of trial and deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours now and forever. Amen. I believe in God the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth. I believe in Jesus Christ, God's only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried. He descended to the dead. On the third day he rose again. He ascended into heaven. He is seated at the right hand of the Father, and he will come to judge the living and the dead. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body, and the life everlasting. Amen. Let us pray. We give thanks to you, Heavenly Father, through Jesus Christ, your dear Son, that you protected us through the night from all harm and danger. We ask that you would also protect us today from sin and all evil, so that our life and actions may please you. Into your hands we commend ourselves, our bodies, our souls, and all that is ours. Let your holy angels be with us, so that the wicked foe may have no power over us. Amen. Almighty God, bless us, defend us from all evil, and bring us to everlasting life. Amen. As I said at the outset, our reading this morning is taken from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 31, verses 6 through 8. And this is one of those things, and it happens even with the lectionary sometimes. You get a reading that just kind of like starts, and you have no idea, no sense of the context, no sense of what's just happened, and then it just jumps into it, and you're kind of confused unless you're a Bible whiz or a biblical scholar. You have a hard time placing things together. Well, this is one of those situations where verses 6 through 8, it just starts out with a statement, and you kind of don't know where the context for it. So what I've chosen to do is actually read the first 5 verses of Deuteronomy 31. It doesn't explain everything, but I think it does help set the stage for the assigned reading, which is verses 6 through 8. And so verses 1 through 5 go like this. When Moses had finished speaking all these words to all Israel, he said to them, I am now 120 years old. I am no longer able to get about, and the Lord has told me you shall not cross over this Jordan. The Lord your God himself will cross over before you. He will destroy these nations before you, and you shall dispossess them. Joshua also will cross over before you, as the Lord promised. The Lord will do to them as he did to Sihon and Og, the kings of the Amorites, and to their land when he destroyed them. The Lord will give them over to you, and you shall deal with them in full accord with the command that I have given you. And so there's the allusion to the fact that after 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, they're about ready to cross the Jordan into the promised land. That first generation, including Moses himself, though, are not going to make the journey. They're not going to make that final step of the journey. A new leader, Joshua, is going to be appointed to lead them over the Jordan and into the promised land and into this new phase in their lives. And so then we pick it up in verse 6, and verses 6 through 8 go, Behold, be strong and bold, have no fear or dread of them. Again, a kind of reference back to Sihon and Og and the Amorites, which is why I read that. Because it is the Lord your God who goes with you, he will not fail you or forsake you. And then Moses summoned Joshua and said to him in the sight of all Israel, "Be strong and bold, for you are the one who will go with this people into the land that the Lord has sworn to their ancestors to give them, and you will put them in possession of it. It is the Lord who goes before you. He will be with you. He will not fail you or forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed." So Moses basically says to the people, be strong and bold, have no fear. He says then specifically to Joshua, be strong and bold. And so it's this idea of not necessarily knowing exactly what the future is going to hold, but moving ahead with confidence. It's interesting, I came across an article yesterday that kind of fits here in a bit. It's entitled "The Polish Phrase That Will Help You Through Tough Times." Of course, coming from a Polish background myself, that caught my eye. It was written by a woman by the name of Olga Mecking. It first appeared in BBC Travel about 4 years ago. And she writes, in Poland, the concept of jakoś to będzie is acting without worrying about the consequences. That's kind of what Moses is saying here, isn't it? Just act, move ahead, be bold, strong. Don't worry about the consequences. It's reaching for the impossible, she says. It's taking risks and not being afraid. Again, I think fits with what Moses is saying in our reading today. She goes on to point out, located between Germany and Russia, Poland has always been a focal point of conflict. In 1772, 1793, and 1795, as Poland went through what is known as the three partitions, its size progressively reduced. With the last partition, the country all but disappeared from the map for 123 years and only gained back independence in 1918. I know this for a fact because I've seen a copy of my paternal grandfather's citizenship papers. And in it, he had to renounce his allegiance to the Tsar of Russia. Okay, Poland, but there was no Poland. This is 1890s or whatever, or early 1900s. So Poland didn't exist again until after the First World War. She goes on to write, World War II left Poland destroyed, its population decimated. As if that wasn't enough, the country then came under Soviet control. In 1981, in response to the rising solidarity movement, the government introduced martial law, severely restricting normal life and freedom of the Polish population. After the fall of the Iron Curtain, Poland joined the ranks of other Western democratic countries, but not without a long and difficult period of transformation. And yet, despite this traumatic history, Polish people remain optimistic. Growing up in Poland, she says, I often heard people say, jakoś to będzie. My parents said it to me whenever I was worried about something, and I always thought it was very encouraging. Literally, the phrase means, things will work out in the end. But it's much more than that. Rather than sitting around and hoping things will work out by themselves, jakoś to będzie is acting without worrying about the consequences. It's reaching for the impossible. It's taking risks and not being afraid. Again, fits perfectly with Moses is telling the people here at the end of Deuteronomy. Take this risk. Cross the river. Don't be afraid. It's the unwavering certainty that we can do anything no matter what obstacles we face along the way, said Beata Chamatowska, co-author of Jakoś to będzie, The Polish Way of Life. And that's what makes it a perfect philosophy for tough times, says Meckling. Happiness, Polish style, is getting out of your comfort zone. It's doing something that doesn't seem to make sense simply for the sake of going against the tide. It's striving for change. Jakoś to będzie doesn't require traumatic experiences, though. In our daily lives, it can simply mean doing something out of the ordinary, taking the unusual route, going to another city without knowing where to spend the night. It's always a bit of an adventure, she says. Be strong and bold. It's an adventure. But of course, in the context of Deuteronomy, it's from the perspective of faith. It's taking those chances and being strong and bold when you don't know exactly what's going to happen, because God is with you. God goes before you, said Moses. He'll be with you. He will not fail you or forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed. Well, there was a piece written by Mark Bruner, and I think I used some, maybe or all of this some months ago. We've been doing this for, since last August. So I don't keep a record of the passages or what I've talked about, and so I think we had one from the book of Joshua, and now it's sort of kind of the same thing where Joshua is kind of emerging as the new leader. But I think it's worth, I know I enjoyed reading it again, and I think it's worth sharing again. He writes, "Why is the world such a fearful place? It seems these days that people are afraid of more things than they ever were before. We're afraid of big things and little things alike. We're filled with fear when we think of that terrorist with a bomb strapped around his middle, while our expanding waistlines keep us almost as fearful of that bulge around our own middle. We fear that our homes might be broken into, so we invest in expensive alarm systems. We fear that our identity might be stolen, so our plastic has become more important to us than gold or silver. It's ironic that in a land that once presented people with so many fearful prospects in the form of skulking mountain lions, ferocious grizzlies, and wolves, not to mention a wide assortment of killing diseases, famine, and scalp-hunting Indians, we seem more fearful today than were our forefathers who faced so many physical dangers just trying to survive from day to day. What is it about the very real dangers of the past that gave our forefathers pause but didn't interrupt their sleep? How were they able to survive with such pluck, maintain their self-sufficiency, and guard their personal liberty in the face of nearly overwhelming everyday danger? Today, Americans rush into the arms of their government at the slightest hint of a danger or a threat, willing even to give up our most precious liberties in order to secure the hand of a government over us. We stand weak-kneed and wobbly every time the news is rife with the possibility of something terrible happening, even in a land thousands of miles away. Perhaps there's a clue in a poll conducted by the Ladies' Home Journal years ago. The magazine asked this simple question: in whom do you trust? Of the thousands who responded, 2 individuals were selected as the most trustworthy. 40% listed Walter Cronkite. You could tell this is a few decades ago, the CBS News anchor, and 26% listed the Pope. God came in dead last at 3%. Even the plumber and used car salesman scored higher than the almighty creator of the universe. If you can't trust God to take care of you, it's little wonder that we're so filled with fear. Doubtless Walter Cronkite could do little to convince a terrorist ready to blow himself to pieces that it might not be a good idea, even on his best journalistic day. And then he quotes evangelist James Brown, who writes, "Some years ago, when I was learning to fly, my instructor told me to put the plane into a steep and extended dive. I was totally unprepared for what was about to happen. And after a brief time, the engine stalled and the plane began to plunge out of control, and it soon became evident that the instructor was not going to help me at all. After a few seconds, which seemed like eternity, my mind began to function again. I quickly corrected the situation. Immediately, I turned to the instructor and began to vent my fearful frustrations on him. And he very calmly said to me, 'There is no position that you can get this airplane into that I cannot get you out of. If you want to learn to fly, go up there and do it again.' And at that moment, God seemed to be saying to me, 'Remember this. As you serve me, there is no situation you can get yourself into that I cannot get you out of. If you trust me, you will be all right.' That lesson has been proven true in my ministry many times over the years. God promises us that he will never leave or forsake us. We heard that in the reading this morning. And that's a hard thing to believe when so many fearful things are happening around us every day. To be sure, it must have been difficult to our forefathers to grasp at times as they fended off those wild beasts and devastating illnesses. And to Joshua, it must have been a fearful prospect as well. He was faced with a looming enemy everywhere he went. He could choose to ally himself with others or choose to rely solely on that trustworthy co-pilot, his heavenly Father. Walter Cronkite or God? I guess if I'm going to choose a co-pilot that can steer me away from any fear that I have, the choice is simple. God is always in control. Let's close this morning with this week's prayer. God of love, free us from fear. so that we may love others as you have loved us. Through Christ Jesus. Amen. All righty, the second half of the week is beginning. Well, we're past the end of the week, really, Thursday and Friday. So hope it's going well for you and continues for these next couple of days as well. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.